Britain is bleeding wealth, and no one's fixing it. Britain now has the highest millionaire exodus in Europe. Last year alone, more than 5,000 millionaires packed up and left the United Kingdom.
Either lots of people are leaving or no one's leaving at all, and this is all very overblown.
So any tax advisors we have in the UK and abroad, because we have multiple businesses in multiple countries, we are advised we must leave the UK. There's no other choice.
They took their families, their companies, and their tax money with them. It isn't just the super rich. Middle-class families are moving to Spain, Portugal, and even Dubai in search of lower costs, lower taxes, and a better quality of life. For the first time in modern British history, wealth is not being created here, it's leaving. Inflation is high, public debt is higher, and growth is nearly zero. Young people can't buy homes, older people can't afford heating, and everyone seems to be asking the same question. What happened to Britain? This is the story of how the United Kingdom, once the center of global finance and industry, became one of the slowest growing economies in the developed world.
The UK economy has shrunk unexpectedly for the second month in a row. GDP, the value of all goods and services, dropped by 0.1% in May.
A story of decades of choices, missed opportunities, and quiet decline. For much of the last 30 years, Britain seemed rich. London was booming. The city became the financial capital of Europe. Property prices exploded. Foreign money poured in. On paper, it looked like success, but underneath, the real economy was hollowing out. Factories in the Midlands closed. Shipyards in the north vanished. Whole towns built on steel, coal, and cars were replaced by call centers and warehouses. Instead of producing things, Britain started selling services and assets. Banks, insurance, and real estate became the pillars of the economy. But these sectors concentrated wealth in London and the southeast, leaving the rest of the country behind. By 2010, London's output per person was almost double that of the northeast, and that gap kept growing. This was the foundation of Britain's modern problem, an economy that looked prosperous from above, but fragile from the ground. The world admired London's skyline and luxury markets, but it missed the slow decay happening everywhere else. The illusion shattered in 2008. The financial crash hit Britain harder than almost any other advanced economy. Its banks had grown massive, leveraged, and reckless. Royal Bank of Scotland collapsed. Lloyds and HBOS followed. The government spent more than £130 billion bailing them out. Britain avoided a total collapse, but it came out scarred. The economy shrank by more than 6%. Public debt doubled. Austerity followed. The government cut public spending, froze wages, and slashed local budgets. By the mid-2010s, growth had returned, but productivity had not. Real wages were still lower than before the crisis. For ordinary people, it felt like the recovery never happened. Trains cost more, hospitals took longer, council services disappeared, and yet the rich kept getting richer. Between 2008 and 2020, the wealth of Britain's top 1% rose by more than £1 trillion. Meanwhile, half of households saw their disposable incomes stagnate. It wasn't just inequality. It was a transfer of power from workers to assets, from industry to property, from people who make to people who own. Then came 2016. Brexit wasn't just a political vote, it was an economic shockwave. For decades, the European Union had been Britain's biggest trading partner. Nearly half of all exports went to Europe. Leaving meant new borders, new costs, and new friction. The Office for Budget Responsibility estimates that Brexit permanently reduced the size of the UK economy by about 4%, the equivalent of £100 billion every year. For small businesses, that meant forms, tariffs, and delays that often wiped out profit margins entirely. For investors, it meant uncertainty. And for multinational firms, it meant moving staff and headquarters to Paris, Frankfurt, or Amsterdam. By 2024, more than 100 major financial institutions had shifted assets out of London to stay inside the EU's regulatory zone. It wasn't catastrophic. It was worse than that. It was slow. A decade of lost potential. No crash to rally from, just a gradual drain of energy, money, and ambition. The economy didn't explode. It just started leaking. Then came the global shocks, COVID, supply chains, war. Everywhere got hit, but in Britain, it hurt more. By 2023, inflation peaked above 11%, the highest in 40 years. Energy prices doubled. Groceries rose by almost 20%. Interest rates hit 5.25%, sending mortgages soaring. For millions, the math stopped working. Half of renters in London now spend more than 50% of their income on rent. Food bank use reached record highs. More than 3 million households needed help in 2024. Teachers, nurses, and rail workers went on strike because their wages hadn't kept up with inflation for a decade. Meanwhile, corporate profits surged. Energy giants like BP and Shell reported tens of billions in earnings. Private equity firms bought up housing stock, nursing homes, and utilities. For those at the top, inflation was an opportunity. For everyone else, it was an eviction notice. This was the new British divide, not just between rich and poor, but between those who own assets and those who rent everything. The owner of a London flat saw their property gain £100,000 in value. A tenant in the same building watched their rent rise by $500 a month. The same economy, two completely different outcomes. Britain's housing market has become both its greatest source of wealth and its biggest economic time bomb. In 1997, the average home cost 3.5 times the average income. By 2025, it's closer to 10 times. In London, 15 times. For young people, it's almost impossible. The average first-time buyer is now 34 years old, the oldest on record. House prices rise because supply never does. Local councils approve too few developments. The planning system is decades out of date. Landowners hold empty plots, waiting for prices to rise. Foreign investors treat British property like gold. Overseas buyers now own 1 in 10 London homes worth over £1 million. Every pound that goes into housing is a pound that doesn't go into business, innovation, or productivity. But politicians love it because rising house prices make homeowners feel richer, even if nothing else improves. Britain has turned housing into a national religion, but its faith is built on debt. Household debt now equals more than 100% of GDP. If interest rates rise further, millions could default. The foundation of Britain's middle class could crack. And when the middle class falls, so does the entire illusion of stability. Britain's public services are collapsing under the weight of neglect. The National Health Service, once the pride of the country, now holds a record 7.5 million people on waiting lists. Ambulances queue outside hospitals for hours. Patients wait months for basic operations. Local councils are going bankrupt. Schools are crumbling, literally. Some still use temporary buildings from the 1970s. Buses have vanished from rural areas. Police forces can barely investigate burglaries. For decades, politicians promised to do more with less. Now, they are doing less with nothing. The UK's tax burden is the highest in 70 years, yet the quality of public services is worse than ever. People pay more, receive less, and trust the system less every year. This is not just inefficiency, it's erosion, slow, invisible, but everywhere. When a country loses faith that its institutions can deliver, everything else begins to break. And in Britain, that faith is gone. Britain's divide is no longer political or regional. It's economic. The rich live in a different country from everyone else. London has more billionaires per square mile than any city in Europe. Yet the capital also has the highest poverty rate in the UK. 1 in 4 Londoners lives below the poverty line. The average CEO now earns more in 3 days than the average worker makes in a year. FTSE 100 executives took home an average of £3.9 million in 2024. Meanwhile, 1 in 5 workers earns less than the real living wage. The middle class, once the backbone of British life, is being squeezed out of existence. The average household saves nothing at the end of the month. Credit card debt is back at record highs. Millions rely on buy now, pay later loans to get through the week. Owning a home, raising a family, retiring comfortably, these used to be normal goals. Now, they are luxuries. And even the rich are leaving. High taxes, political chaos, and weak public infrastructure have pushed thousands of millionaires to move abroad. In 2024, the UK recorded the highest millionaire exodus in Europe. Nearly 5,000 millionaires emigrated to Switzerland, Dubai, and Singapore. These aren't oligarchs or celebrities. They're founders, investors, and professionals who no longer believe Britain rewards success. Every departure takes money, jobs, and spending with it, and it deepens the cycle. Fewer taxpayers at the top, more pressure on everyone else. The irony is cruel. While the poor can't afford to stay warm, the rich can afford to leave. The people who built their fortunes here are taking them elsewhere. An economy loses more than money when it loses faith. It loses identity. Britain's problems are structural, but its politics are theatrical. 5 prime ministers in 8 years, 4 chancellors in a single summer, a government that changes faces but never direction. Each promises growth, none delivers. Boris Johnson spent freely and left a mess. Liz Truss lasted 45 days and nearly collapsed the pound. Rishi Sunak calls for discipline while debt hits record highs. Opposition leaders talk about fairness but never cost of change. Everyone wants reform. No one wants blame. Taxes on work are high, but taxes on wealth are low. Property owners vote, renters don't. And every election becomes a contest of slogans rather than solutions. This is what decline looks like in a democracy. Not revolution, not chaos, just drift. While Britain argues with itself, the world is moving fast. The United States is pouring billions into AI and green energy. Germany is rebuilding its industry around automation. France is investing in nuclear power and transport. Even Italy's productivity is now catching up. The UK, once the model of modern capitalism, is falling behind. Between 2010 and 2024, productivity in Britain grew by less than 0.5% a year, the worst in the G7. GDP per person has barely moved since before the financial crash. In 2023, the average Briton was poorer than the average citizen of Ireland, France, or the Netherlands. Foreign investment has slumped, exports have stagnated, and the pound, once a symbol of strength, has lost 40% of its value against the dollar since 2007. This isn't just about economics, it's about relevance. The UK still has influence in finance, culture, education, but it's losing its reputation as a country that knows what it's doing. Behind every chart and statistic is a person. The pensioner choosing between heating and food, the young couple living in a shared flat, saving nothing, owning nothing, the nurse driving for Uber after night shifts, the small business owner paying more in energy bills than rent. Britain's story has always been about resilience, but resilience has turned into survival. A generation that was told, work hard and you'll get ahead, is realizing the latter is gone. And for many, the dream of social mobility has died. Parents no longer expect their children to live better lives. That's not a recession. That's a loss of faith in the future. Britain's problems are deep, but they are not permanent. It still has world-class universities, powerful creative industries, and one of the strongest currencies on Earth. It could lead again in energy, biotech, and AI. But that requires courage, the kind that has been missing for decades. Build homes, not bubbles. Invest in productivity, not property. Tax wealth fairly, reward work properly. Reconnect with trading partners. Repair the public realm. The roadmap is not complicated. It's just politically expensive. The choice for Britain is simple. Keep managing decline or start rebuilding from the ground up. The United Kingdom once built the modern world. Now it struggles to build houses. It once ruled global trade. Now it fears global competition. It once exported ambition. Now it exports its people. Britain isn't failing because it's poor. It's failing because it's afraid. Afraid to change, afraid to dream, afraid to admit how far it has fallen. The rest of the world still believes in British stability. But stability without progress is just stagnation. The question is not whether the UK can recover. It's whether it still wants to.